Hello everybody. Today we're going to check out a rumor about repairing headlights with WD-40. We're going to find out if it works. Is it a permanent fix or a temporary fix? Is it a doable temporary fix? Worth any time at all. So let's give this a shot and see what happens. If you like this, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, but subscribe to it if you like this type of edutainment, and I'll give you some more somewhere down the road. What we're going to do today is we're going to try to clean these headlights, and as you can see, they're hazed over pretty bad. I want to do the WD-40 thing. Everybody talks about WD-40, and show you that it's just a temporary fix. And I'm just having a hard time with my camera today, but this is WD-40, and it makes the lens very, very clear. However, a little soap and water, and you can wash it right off. And if you can wash it off, it wasn't fixed. It just fills in the little imperfections temporarily. And if you just need to go somewhere and you don't normally drive at night, but you need to drive tonight and you want to see where you're going, you can hit them with WD-40, and they'll last you for, it might even last you for a whole week. But as this dries out, it'll be just as hazy as it was to start with. And there's other ways to do it besides the way I'm going to do it, but the way I'm going to do it works. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sand down the imperfections in the lens. I don't really have the paper that I wanted, so we're just going to kind of make do. I'm going to start off with, this is a wet or dry paper, and I want to start off with an 800 grit. I normally would start with a 600, but I don't have a 600 with me, and I don't have time to go get it. But you can see there's a little milky haze starting to develop, and that's the haze coming off of the headlights. You want to be sure not to rub the paint on your car. Just try to get all the areas of the headlight without getting into the paint. And this is not, it won't have to be absolutely perfect. It doesn't take a lot. And then we're gonna switch this 800 over to a 1000 grit. My GoPro's broke, so I'm doing this with a cell phone, so I hope it comes out good enough that everybody can see it. This is a 1000 grit, and you can see that's making a milky residue also.
That's just soapy water, right?
This is just soapy water, yeah. Stay away from your chrome, stay away from your paint, and keep this lubricated. It's just taking a really fine layer of plastic off, and that plastic that comes off is just as hard as the plastic that's still on there, so it'll have a tendency to scratch it. So you want to keep your paper clean. So just dunk it in the water and tear off a smaller piece to work with, and just hit this a few times. What you're doing is you're making the scratches increasingly smaller by going to the smaller grits, and it won't do any good to start off with a 2000, because then you're skipping over a lot of it. So it's not a shortcut to skip steps. And the last one I'm going to use is a 2000. And they make this in 3000. I don't have any, so we're not using 3000 today. There's a couple of ways you can go after this, but you can see this one is just getting real milky looking, and that's the fine layer of the plastic that's coming off of there. And there's a couple of ways you can proceed from here. You can get, some people use metal polish and polish the lens back up. That works pretty good. And what I like to do is I like to actually coat it with an acrylic, and I'll show you that process in a minute. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to dry this off, and It's probably going to be universally hazy once I get it dried off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape everything off, and I don't really think you need to see the entire process on that, but I'll show you the stuff that I'm going to use before we get, I'll shut the camera off to save everybody some bandwidth. So it's universally hazy is probably what I would consider this right now. And that's what you're looking for. See, as it dries out, there's a nice even haze all over everything, and that's what we're looking for. And that's what the sandpaper does. You see, every time I get a little more water on it, it clears it up just a tad. So I'm going to cut the camera off and get my materials, and I'll be right back. All right, what I'm going to use is just painter's tape. You don't want anything that's going to stick, and you don't want to leave this on any longer than you need to. So I'm going to mask off the paint and the chrome. And the thinner versions of this tape are a little easier to turn corners with. And then the wider stuff I'll come back with to hang some paper on here, so we don't have to put tape over the entire car. And I'll come back when we get the rest of this taped up. If you haven't ever done this before, when you're trying to make these corners, the tape doesn't make the corner too well, so you just tear it off in little pieces and put small increments as you go around. And it just makes your life a lot easier than trying to get it up in every little crook and fold with a solid piece of tape. And what we're going to use here is just a clear, and you want to use not the frosted stuff. This is an indoor-outdoor clear coat. Okay, well, if you don't use a screwdriver, I guess you can just break the top off. You want to use really light, even coats. This will dry pretty quick. You don't want to do this in direct sunlight. You don't want to do it on a windy day. And you don't want to do it when it's super hot or super cold. Then you end up with a really clear headlight. Now I've had on some occasion, if you goof this piece up, you can come back in with a 3000 grit and smooth it out and do it again. But this is going to be worlds better than what you had, and it's going to last longer than most of the other methods. One thing I want to mention also about the masking, they use the thin tape. Then if you go over it with a thicker tape, it's a lot easier to put the paper on, and this doesn't have to be critical. Just makes it easier. I'm using a donor car today, and we're trying to kind of do this in a hurry because she has other obligations. So I'm doing this as quick as I can, and then when I come back in, it's easier to get the paper on. Got everything masked off and taped up. I'll turn the rattle can down and post if you need to. So just again, multiple thin layers. Should be good. And this will take 30 minutes or so to dry.
I stopped it. Sorry.
Oh, okay, that's all right.
Oh no, I didn't stop it. Huh.
Hey, this is just a wrap up for the WD-40 stuff. Is it a permanent fix? Not even close, but it's worth your time if you only occasionally drive at night and you find yourself in an emergency situation where you have to go somewhere at night. Hit them with WD-40. You're going to have a lot safer trip than if you don't do anything to them at all. As far as a permanent fix, coating them with the clear coat is not a permanent fix, but it lasts. The ones I've done have lasted for about 1.5 years, and maybe longer, but the longest one I know of has lasted for 1.5 years, and the guy sold the car. It was still working at that point. Is it going to be permanent? Absolutely not. But if you don't mind redoing it every year, 1.5 years, and it depends on where you live, you might have to do it every 6 months, but it's cheap. If you think about it, the factory headlights weren't permanent. So that's going to be your longest repair. There is a clear shrink wrap that you can put on them. I've never tried that. And if you want to look for those videos, you can check those out. That's supposed to be a good method. Never tried it. So if you got a quick trip to make, get some WD-40, throw a can in the car with you, hit them a time or two if you have to drive through 2 or 3 days at a time. Other than that, do the clear coat method. I think you're going to be happy with it. It's going to certainly get you by until you can pick up another car, get rid of that car or whatever. And you may have to redo it maybe as quick as 6 months, maybe 1 year, 1.5 years. But it does work, and it gives you a lot more life than you had before you worked on it. So I hope this helps somebody, and everybody have a great day. Catch you down the road.